Hello, brother friends and sister friends. Welcome to the Heart Set Above podcast. I'm Ellen Radcliffe, a therapist and a believer, here to help you navigate faith, relationships, and life in a world so far from Eden. This podcast is a space where we'll explore topics that matter deeply. Things like grief, connection, identity, and practical faith, grounded in both therapeutic wisdom and biblical truth. Whether we're wrestling with the messy middle between love and righteousness or learning to communicate like Jesus, we'll do it together with hearts set on things above. So grab your coffee, settle in, and join me as we pursue deeper connection with God, ourselves, and others. Let's dive in. Hello, brother friends and sister friends. Welcome to the Heart Set Above podcast. This first episode serves as an orientation, what the podcast is all about, what you can expect, and how it ties into our shared journey as Christians navigating life in a world so far from Eden. I'm Ellen Radcliffe, one of your hosts. I'm a therapist, a Christian, and for the past 15 years, I've worked at the intersection of sex, sexuality, gender, and faith. As a former lesbian, I've combined my personal and professional experiences to walk alongside individuals, couples, and families navigating these incredibly tender and challenging topics. Here's something I've discovered over the years. Most of the time, the conversations I have with Christians navigating LGBTQ topics aren't really about LGBTQ topics. They almost always come back to deeper, more universal issues: faith, identity, relationships, and the struggle to trust and follow God in a broken world. These aren't LGBTQ issues, they're life issues rooted in our connection to God, ourselves, and others. One of the greatest joys of my work is witnessing how God uses even moments of crisis and despair to draw people closer to Him. In that closeness, people often discover a deeper understanding of who God is, who they are, and what really defines their worth and their identity. This podcast was born out of a desire to share those insights with a wider audience. These core lessons I've uncovered through my work in the LGBTQ field go far beyond a single group. They're relevant to all Christians as we wrestle with the complexities of faith and life in a world so far from Eden. So in the Heart Set Above podcast, we'll delve into some of these key themes, including the grief of living outside of Eden. Living outside of Eden affects every human profoundly and devastatingly. There's something deeply incongruent about how we live in a fallen world versus how we were designed to live in perfect communion with God, self, and others. And as a result, we all carry an underlying ache for Eden, for the perfection, peace, and connection that we were created for. Even life's most joyous moments can carry grief alongside them. And recognizing this tension between joy and sorrow allows us to embrace our vulnerability, drawing us closer to God, ourselves, and others, rather than retreating into disconnection. The messy middle space. As Christians, we're called to walk the tension between Jesus' example of both scandalous love and his example of unwavering righteousness. This messy middle space calls us to hold compassion and conviction together, no matter how culturally or relationally challenging it may be. Seeking a clear conscience. While some things in the Bible are black and white, many require us to wrestle with and weigh biblical principles in order to seek a clear conscience before God. As humans, we tend to resist this process. Our brains crave easy, clear-cut answers. Yet it's often through this wrestling that we draw closer to God. In seeking a clear conscience, the focus is less on the what we choose to do or say, and more on the how you approach the decision, staying connected to God throughout the whole process. And this connection becomes our true measure of success regardless of the outcome. A heart set above. For me, Heart Set Above is all about identity and perspective. It's inspired by one of my favorite scriptures, Colossians 3, 1-3, which calls us to set our hearts and minds on things above where Christ is and to root our identity in Him. Learning to balance these two perspectives, living in this world while remembering we're not of this world, is key to navigating life in a fallen creation. We are exiles here, but our true home and purpose are with God. So I often encourage clients and now listeners to perch their hearts in heaven above with God and view their challenges from that higher perspective. It's from that vantage point that we're reminded of who we really are and who others really are, precious and deeply loved by our Creator. This perspective helps us approach life with clarity, compassion, and purpose. It's not just about doing the right thing. It's about doing everything with the right heart. A heart continually set above, aligned with Christ, and guided by His love. Authentic connection. Authentic connection is something we all deeply desire. It's something we were created for. Yet many Christians inadvertently sacrifice it when navigating culturally volatile topics. Too often, we see people altering their theology, either neglecting the demand to love or abandoning their commitment to righteousness in an effort to maintain harmony in their earthly relationships. I've walked alongside countless people who feared that standing firm in their beliefs would sever their relationships with their loved ones. But what they discovered was actually the opposite. When approached with compassion, respect, humility, and surrender, holding to conviction can actually deepen connection rather than destroy it, even through disagreement or differing beliefs. When we compromise on love or righteousness, we cease to be our authentic selves. And without authenticity, true connection becomes impossible. However, when we strive to embody both truth and grace, we create space for genuine relationship, even with those we disagree with. This kind of connection meets the heart's deepest longing to be seen, known, and loved, demonstrating that disagreement doesn't have to mean disconnection. Instead, it can become an opportunity for deeper understanding, respect, and love. Practical faith. As in Enneagram 8 and in INFJ on the MBTI, I value efficiency and clarity. I'm not a fan of fluff or abstract spiritual platitudes. Phrases like just pray more or have more faith or you just need to surrender can feel unhelpful without actionable steps to back them up. In this space, I want to utilize therapeutic psychological techniques to help demystify these abstract spiritual concepts and provide tangible, real-life strategies for living out your faith in your daily life and relationships. Effective communication. Communication has always been my first love. My undergrad degree is in interpersonal communication. And while I initially considered studying sociology, I realized that I was even more intrigued by the unique culture that two people or a family create together, their shared dynamic and way of relating. So as a marriage and family therapist, my passion naturally centers on relational dynamics. And at the core of every relationship is communication. Over the years, I've seen that most relational conflicts stem not from malice, but from miscommunication. Misunderstood words, unspoken needs, or misinterpreted intentions often lead to unnecessary pain and disconnection. If we could truly understand the heart behind someone's words, tone, or expressions, I believe we'd experience far less conflict and far deeper connection, not just with others, but with God and within our own selves. So what inspired this passion of mine for communication? Jesus. As a young girl reading the Bible, I was captivated by the way that Jesus communicated. He rarely answered people's surface level questions. Rather, he spoke to the deeper longings of their hearts. He saw beyond their words to the needs, the fears, and the desires that drove them. That ability to truly see someone, to address their heart even when their words fall short, is something I've always aspired to emulate and teach others to do. So these are just a few of the topics that we'll explore together in the Heart Set Above podcast. Alongside these themes, we'll dive into therapeutic concepts that have spiritual underpinnings, like emotions, boundaries, forgiveness, grief, anger, anxiety, trauma, and so much more. Some episodes will feature just me, while others will include my lovely co-host, Georgia, a fellow therapist and Christian. Together, we'll explore these topics in a way that's both meaningful and accessible. Thank you for joining this community and embarking on this journey with us. Together, let's set our hearts above in a world so far from Eden. Until next time.